on the
I
agenda?
It's a new version.
Okay, Doug, yeah, you go
Yeah,
first.
you want to go ahead? Yeah, Jeff Adams, Cannon Beach, Community Development Director.
Recycled.
Part two.
Just do 2.0.
Even better than the first time, I'm pretty sure.
Wiser.
I know. I'm Leanne Thompson. I'm a Clatsop County Commissioner, and it's just great to be home with you.
I'm Barb Knott, Mayor of Cannon Beach.
Gail Henriksen, Community Development Director for Clatsop County.
Steve Wright, Mayor Seaside. Jeff Flory, Community Development, Seaside.
John Roberts, City of Astoria Community Development Director.
I'm Garrett Phillips, coastal planner with Crest and Gearhart's planner.
Robert St. Clair, City of Cannon Beach.
Moving over to online, Brett, all you.
Hey, I'm Brett Estes. I'm the North Coast Regional Representative for the Department of Land, Conservation, and Development.
Jason, how about you?
Hello, everyone. My name is Jason Mackey. I am a technical advisor in the Affordable Rental Housing Division with Oregon Housing and Community Services. Joining from my phone today, just kind of listening in, sort of several things I'm working on happening in the North Coast. So thank you for having me.
Yeah. Welcome, more the merrier. And Luli, I think you're up.
Hi, John. Hi, all. I'm Luli Brown. I am an affordable housing consultant and currently working. I'm on the board of the Copeland Commons project and hopefully trying to get a land trust started on the North Coast.
Fantastic. And then last in, how are you?
Good. I'm Denise Loffman. I'm the executive director at Crest.
All right, welcome. I think we captured everybody. Fairly light agenda, but pithy agenda. Maybe hoping at the end we could do a quick roundtable with miscellaneous news, although that might be baked into number 3. But the next item on the agenda was task force reintroduction, history, evolution, and next steps, brought to you by Jeff, Garrett, and Jeff.
All right.
So take it away.
So is this going to be, do you have the PowerPoint version?
Yeah.
Oh, I can, but sharing the PowerPoint versions.
It's hard. Tricky to do. Okay, so anyhow, I will be void of can you go back just a second? Yeah, that's supposed to be the old date and then the new date. So you're gonna see some slides you're seeing before. Yeah, Jeff Adams, I'd like to say new and improved, but I don't think so. I think you had your chance with that other Jeff Adams. Anyhow, yeah, I did this in July 2022 is when we started this. So I've been asked to kind of give you a little evolution or where it began. So next one, please. So I think it starts here is because every public meeting that I go to starts with terms of use. And we started with this get together last time with terms of use. And it's mainly because, well, what's the first question we always get is, well, what is affordable housing, right? And so click on the next one. Okay, this is what the image is to most people. Keep going. This, I think, is the image that most people have of affordable and public housing. And it's what we have to deal with as a perception in whatever we do. And yet, you know, whether it's affordable housing, next one, workforce housing, next one, community housing, next one, sustainable housing, next one, inclusionary housing, middle housing, needed housing. Those are ones that have been invented since I've been here. And then now, if they're not this, right? It's not market rate. Whatever we do, we're defining what we're not, okay? And that's kind of, you know, when I began this is what we were dealing with, is that every meeting we came into, we were asked about affordable housing or workforce housing, but we really didn't have our hands kind of around the concept. Okay, next. And so how did we get here? And I'm not just talking about, you know, all of these different terms and these names, but, you know, the evolution of this thought, how did we get here talking about this today? So next up, It began with, at least from my perspective, with this, and this was done just before I arrived the first time I came. And we had 26 strategies, 42 action items as part of the Clatsop County Housing Strategy Summary Report. And next one. And so I posed to everybody in the room, how are we doing on this? And you can see from the little scoring chart down there on the left, I got kind of stand up. And so, you know, I have 1 adopted, 2 in the process of review, no action taken, 3, 4 no longer applicable, 5 other. And so I was asking everybody in the room to take this back and score your jurisdiction for me. And because I scored ours and you can see we weren't doing so well. There's not that much green on here. So next up, please. And so that report said regional collaboration and capacity building. And I asked, well, how much regional collaboration and capacity building had we or were we doing at that time? How we scored on that? Next, please. In our 2016 housing report for the city of Cannon Beach, it said what everybody does to forge a housing plan that encourages and facilitates creation of long-term workforce rental housing. They were using workforce even back in 2013 when they started this thing. Identifying long-term, short-term strategies. And then I want to point out this, what they said. People who work in Cannon Beach cannot afford to live in Cannon Beach. This is in 2013, they couldn't live in Cannon Beach. Has become a strain not only to local employers, but on the community itself, which needs an array of residents, families to maintain its social balance and economic well-being. I couldn't say that better today, and it will likely continue for the rest of my life. Okay, next one. And so I said, where do we stand as a community? I'm sitting at my desk. Where are we standing? Well, we produced 8 units of what I would consider affordable workforce housing because there's a deed restriction placed on that runs out in 10 years from that date. So in 2029, we will have none. And this was how much we kind of put towards that project as a city, around 19,000. And we had $255,000 sitting in a pool of money that we had collected from construction excise tax. Okay, so that's why, next slide, please. I started thinking because I had worked in mountain town communities, which I got to tell the story in a second. Okay, this is just on. Okay, I worked in mountain town communities, and I said, well, there's been communities like Aspen and other these places that have been doing this for 50 years, man. We got to figure out this. And these grants, this is one for the Pathways for Removing Obstacles to Housing. I love the government, okay? We can come up with such nice ones. So Pathways, this is, I forget what the acronym for, pro housing is what they call it, PRO housing, see? And so they were going to give $85 million out of this big bucket of money. And so how do you compete for those things? Well, if you look at the winner of any of these nationally funded ones, it's regional collaboration and groups that get together and they win these kind of funding. And I was sitting there thinking from, the 200 and whatever we had collected for city of Cannon Beach. And I said, if we're not spending it here, well, maybe we should look regionally and say, hey, what's the solutions where we could solve this and get not only our funds, but federal funding, state funding for affordable workforce housing. So next one. So not just how we got here, but why did we get here? Okay, so, it's not just a step-by-step process. And this is what I learned from working in the mountain town communities. I mean, it takes a game plan, it takes collaboration, it takes investment, and it takes passion. So next slide. So me, more of the bonobo than the chimp, in the evolutionary scan of things, started saying, okay, well, here's the game plan. So next slide, please. I want to meet with the different jurisdictions, go out, and so I grabbed Brandon Hopefully at the time, he was my elected official, and we met with every jurisdiction. We had coffees or lunches with either an elected official, managing official, and planning official, trying to get the 3 of them together. That man right there is, I think, one of the leaders of every one of these kind of affordable workforce housing. And so each jurisdiction, they were open to meet with this guy who really came kind of out of nowhere and said, I just want to talk about, building regional communication around housing and building regional capacity around housing. Because guess what? When I'm the one leading the charge, you do not have leadership or expertise or anything on housing, because I don't know anything about it, housing. I just know what I've seen and done and been with in the modeling. So I wanted to build this. And so I said, well, I'd like to get a dashboard and leaderboards, because I'm all about gaming the system, okay? So if you can get people involved and they're competing against each other, but as a team, then we can start making a difference and start, and that's why I gave that first how have we done so far business, and then start holding meetings and forming accountability around this concept, around housing, and then education and advocacy. Because all those terms I threw at you, I still, and we'll get to in a second, I got this concept that I like to watch different communities have public meetings. It's a weakness, and I know it's a sad thing. But if you want a good beer, you want a good beer, you want a good drink, sit back, watch that. But you look at them and they're still, I just sat through one where I'm not going to say who, but one of my city council members said, well, mental housing is the same thing as workforce housing. Well, I'm not going to, bring up definitions here, but I see it every single meeting, so we still have to educate, and this is the key, advocate. Because I'll tell you, this is what this group was about to begin with. And I think I look at what you guys have done since I left, and advocacy works. And I'll give you even one example I know from my past experience here. Then build regional capacity around housing. Like I said, we need a leadership. We got to listen, right? We had those kind of conversations. Don and I sat and talked about, we need to build some capacity around housing, some expertise in the housing area. And now you got John. I mean, you got people coming that know about housing. You got other people invested in this. And then start looking at workflows and processes that can get that housing, and then sharing those strategies and projecting those. So next one. And so I came and I held this meeting. Some of these slides are going to be the same, because this is where the passion comes from. I got a notice of non-renewal that I wasn't going to have my housing at the time. And so this was back in 2022. And so I'm going to get booted from my housing at the time. And so, I mean, it was personal that we really needed to get this done, because I had 90 days to figure this out, and I wanted to be not driving from Hillsborough. Okay, next one. And so, just to show you how we've advanced, and this is where the animation hurts, Robert. I need the animation. So this right over here was my first home I bought ever. And it's in Idaho, Sun Valley area of Idaho, workforce housing home that I bought it through the program. What year? 2005-ish, I think. Okay, then this one here was the first place I lived in Cannon Beach, which was a rental. That's the place I got the notice of non-renewal and I got kicked out of. Okay, now I live in an accessory dwelling unit that is part of this, what we talked about and got going in the legislation that we passed, that we allow ADUs and everything. And now I live up here by myself, but it's okay. My wife comes occasionally. And so, but that tells you the spectrum of the problem. Okay, next one. Okay, this is my first job in planning, Sun Valley area, Blaine County, Idaho, planning brand new LEED certified building. Then this was me back in the old city hall, first time here. And this was actually the leftover when they have the job site thing, that was the job site for when they turned this from the logging thing, lumberyard thing, into the actual city hall. And they just left it there and shoved it in there. So that was my office. And now here's the brand new city hall. Those things do happen. They do happen. You may not think these things matter, but they matter. So next up, so I started that first meeting. I don't know if you guys remember. But the first thing that we did was an exercise about what was the first scene in Star Wars? And people were saying, who is this guy? Okay, right. And I still think that, but a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. And the reason we did that, next up, was because I wish you could see this because another one of those animation things that I do. But this is a paper, and really what it's showing is that us compared to orangutans and chimps, okay, and that's just looping back about Bonobo's reference, is that we are amazing at social learning, communication, and theory of mind. In other words, we work well as groups, okay? And yet in spatial and other things, we get beat by the chimps. The chimps beat us in all of these other tests for children versus these people. But it's this social learning. It's these groups that we solve things, and culturally we solve things by packing them away, putting them in books and things like that, and then being able to retrieve them and solve them. So that's why I wanted us to get together to solve these problems. So next one. So I, being myself, got a bunch of data. That was the next thing we started to look at, the data. I'm a data guy. And so this was our workforce at the time. You know, this is where they're commuting from and coming from. Next one. These are old ones too. Regional workforce commuting at 2019. You can tell they're pretty much the same. I just looked at the latest ones that I just saw from, I think, the last report that you guys did. Next. And then the short-term rental comparisons, I pulled that back in the day and did a comparison between. Now, here's what that looks like from the most recent. But you can see, this is seasonal housing in Cannon Beach. This is us, those that live here, okay? And then this right here, short-term rentals. Okay, next up. But I'm a data guy, and so what I do the math. And what was the deal with the math? This is when I did the search back in whatever, 2021. Yeah, 2022. Yeah, 6 homes that could be purchased within the entire county at if you were on the AMI rates and what we could afford. So I can't even imagine what it would be now. I could probably include these 6 counties, and then we may have 6 in there. Okay, next up. So I'm looking at this and I said, well, what are the models? Okay, and so that's where, as a mountain town aside, so I had a beer with John. I had seen him on a Zoom meeting or whatever just a little bit ago, and so I said, we need to get together before this meeting because he's going to be he's going to lead you all. And I said, I just want to, touch base, see who you are. Anyhow, we meet for a beer. We're starting to share with each other. And I knew this guy from when I first started my career. He was working in Summit County, Breckenridge area. I'm from Idaho. We had met at a Mountain Town Planners conference there. And just, he was into long range planning, I was into long range planning. And that's how, and we said, you're John Robinson. I said, yeah, it was it. And so that's how, and so next one. And so I'm looking at different models. How are other communities, and it's those mountain town communities that I was going back to look at how they solved it. And so I passed around this paper to everybody before the first meeting called Help Wanted. It was out from Outside Magazine that showed, I think it was Crested Butte, that town, but the difficulties mountain town communities were dealing with. So next one. And so I looked at all these different ones and I showed everybody that was here that day 4 years ago, how are they dealing with it? You can go to the next one. Gunnison, next one. Park City, next one. Blaine County, that's where I worked and lived. Telluride, next one. But I also looked regional because Tillamook was doing some good things at that time. If you guys remember, it seemed like they were about 6 months ahead of us or something. And so I asked them, and we got them involved, and next one, and then looked at what we're doing. Okay, and then next up. Okay, and so keep going. There are also other organizations out there doing the exact same thing. So I wanted you guys to know that there's this community called Gateway and Natural Amenity Region Initiative. It's out of Utah State, And they do webinars, they do courses, but they pull together mountain town communities and those facing a lot of the same challenges and hold conferences and everything. So there's networks out there that we can also connect with that I still didn't know about when I started this thing at first, and it hadn't begun yet. So next up. And so I looked at the USDA classifies all counties, both metro and non-metro, into these county typologies built on industries. So if you go to the next one, if you look at them, so there's 1,960 non-metro counties, and they break them down into farm dependent, mining dependent, manufacturing, government, or recreation dependent, or non-specified. Okay, if you look, blue is the recreation dependent. So next one, we're one of those blue.
Wow.
And there's 295 recreation dependent non-metro counties. Look where they are. Coastal mountain areas, okay? Next one. They also break them down into what are retirement dependent. And so who are the other counties similar to us in retirement? 191 different ones in the US. This is 2025 edition. And you can see similar type of areas. Retirees like to go to those nice places. Okay, next one. And then 288 housing stressed non-metro. Okay, so when you combine all those, you get, this is total non-metro counties, 39 that meet the recreation, retirement, and housing stress counties in the US. And if if it was non-animated, which I'll send the non-animated so you can see these mapped, and I'll give you the data as well. But you can see, how do we compare? There's 4 in Oregon: Clatsop, Curry, Lincoln, and Temple. And as you can see, they're all coastal. They're all over there on the stuff. And so go on to the next one. And what did they do when they did these studies? You can tell from, and it doesn't come up to today, but I can't imagine them not continuing at even maybe a greater clip now. But you look at the recreation as you compare up here, population, county grew in the early 2000s and leveled off. But you can see our growth rate as a recreation community is just outpacing any others. And then the same thing with median income. Okay, next up. And so what I do, even though, and I'm going to admit, I'm not the hugest fan of AI, but you got to use the tools. You got to use the new data out there. This is created by AI, okay? And so I put in all of the comprehensive plans that I could find. I didn't get them all yet, but I just did it the last couple of days. So anyhow, pull out every comprehensive plan from those matching communities, those 39 communities, put them into the notebook LM by Google bucket, and then ask them. They produce that in about 2 seconds. And this is just doing a little planning of paradise 2 counties comparison. Can you click? Okay. You can have let me see, I can probably, but anyhow, what you can do, it will summarize. So, here's the Affordable Workforce Housing and Gateway Community Summary Sheet while I try to find the audio. And tell me if that doesn't, say pretty much what we've spent our time kind of reviewing here. So if you ask it to summarize what I just gave you, this is what it comes up with.
Think, wow, I could actually live here. Well, that one simple thought is the spark that starts a huge challenge for so many communities. How do you grow without losing the very thing that makes you special in the first place? Today, we're diving right into that balancing act. I mean, that's the big question, isn't it? Our place is amazing. People want to be there. But here's the catch. More people means more houses, more cars, more development, and all of that can start to chip away at the very soul of a place. So how on earth do you manage that tension? And to get to the bottom of this, we're going to zoom in on 2 absolutely stunning spots in the American West: San Juan County, out on Washington's coastal islands, and Teton County, deep in the mountains of Idaho. They give us two completely different stories about how to handle the pressures of change. One is a
So, I mean, it will give you all kinds of stuff, right? That was the,
You're gonna send that too, right?
I can send you everything, but here, this is, let's see.
This is the brief on affordable and
This
workforce
is
housing
affordable
solutions.
workforce housing.
So you know all those rural and resort towns across the US? Well, they're having a really hard time housing the very people who keep their economies running. Standard zoning just isn't cutting it, so local governments are getting creative. I mean, they're rethinking everything from taxes to what a home even is, just to fix this supply gap. First up, they're changing the physical footprint. We're seeing this big move away from single-family homes and toward denser, smaller options. For example, Clatsop County in Oregon is pushing for cottage clusters. And in places like Nevada and Idaho, they're legalizing guest houses in subdivisions to create housing, like right now. Nantucket even using special zoning to allow dormitories just for their seasonal staff. Pretty smart. Second, it's not enough to just have the land. You've got to bring down the cost of building on it. Take Jefferson County, Washington. They're making tiny homes a legit option for permanent housing. And they're bypassing expensive infrastructure by piloting things like composting toilets and gray water systems. Basically anything to avoid a costly sewer connection. And finally, you have to talk about the money. San Juan County, for instance, uses a real estate tax specifically to fund this kind of development. Meanwhile, Nantucket has this thing called a housing needs covenant. It's a really clever tool that lets different people own separate homes on the same lot, which, splits the sky-high land cost from the home price, making it actually affordable for locals. So, solving this crisis really takes this combination of tiny physical solutions and some pretty heavy legal innovation to keep local workers in the community.
So there's lots of tools out there that I think can help us. We've started using them, I think, by just getting us together and starting to look at how other communities in Oregon are doing. Next slide. But I don't want to limit us on the models. And so next one. So when we came back together, one of the limitations I wanted us to stay at least cognizant of and thinking about is that this is an organization chart from Blaine County when I was there. And so this shows how big the county is in the building and housing and the building, housing and planning department. This doesn't have the housing. So housing was a different, and that was Blaine County housing. And so next one. And so I kind of compared, and this was back in 2019, looking at the different county populations of those communities that I'd showed earlier. Next one. And then I looked at, what is the full-time employees doing in each one of those areas of planning, housing, and development. Okay, next one. And then what are citizens per planner? Okay, and comparing those. Next one. What's the assessed value of these counties? Next one. And even though it says the city, that's the kind of the, Aspen's Picken County, Telluride's Gunnison, I think, Ketchum, Blaine. So I was just using the ski town to kind of show that. But then property values per citizen, okay? And then keep going, property values per planner, because I wanted to keep us in mind that it takes money, it takes resources to regulate things, to keep people happy. Just asking can a beach or to keep them unhappy.
To keep them.
Yeah, at least to keep their neighbors happy, right? Okay, so next one. And so I wanted to look at this and say, well, how are we doing housing production wise? And this was my rough guess at the time by looking at how many deed restricted homes were being produced in each county as part of their overall units. And so that was from back then. I'd like to see it now and like to compare that. Okay, next. And so, what are different counties doing? What's their missions and what their statement? This was Tillamook County. So we looked at Tillamook County's mission, how they were set up organizationally. Next slide, please. And then, how they operated. And you can see they had a very different kind of setup, but they did have this housing plan and how they wanted to move forward over a year or so. Okay, next. And so I said, well, how about let's meet for a year and a half. That was what I think maybe, I don't know if I told every group that I met with, but I know that when Don asked me, I said, a year and a half, it's a task force, and then we're done with it, okay? I do not want this to continue. And so anyhow, I left. anyhow, going to the next one. So that is why this has always been a portion of it. That's what it's always been to me. And if we go to the next slide or we go back to kind of toolboxes or what we have, keep going there. I go back to this thought and I thought about this and I had conversations with Denise in this early because we had talked about, hey, the region Crest as the regional entity could move this forward. But we knew that if we got Alyssa on board and we got competency and in that organization, then they make also, a logical choice for moving a lot of this forward and building this capacity. And we talked about planners, we talked about building officials, and we talked about making this maybe more of a regionally structured or at least kind of idea that almost Garrett has come to fulfill. He's like a planner for every jurisdiction. Hey, Garrett, can you come over? Yeah, I got a problem over here. Okay, yeah, right. And so, but those kind of things, building this kind of support system and regionally supporting, and not just that, but workflows and processes. So can we go to the next one? Clatsop County GIS stepped up and helped us develop this working app, this development app. Us as each jurisdiction has to come to the fore and help build that. But when I think of dashboards and leaderboards and game chip, I want to know how many units have you produced? How many has this jurisdiction produced? And what's that percentage of this? I am a data kind of geek. Okay, so next one. So this is what our state does. So if you go to I love the name of this, so let me find it.
Apple.
Do you what is it called?
Apple. That's Apple, right?
Yeah, it is Apple, but what's the name? What is the name of it? Housing and Accountability Production Office. Is that it? Housing? I love that. Yeah. I mean, they can come up with the best names, but this is the story that, and then those state guys, Brett, they just come up with great things. So anyhow, this, but what if you look at this and you look at this is my closest I could get. I wanted to know, well, how many have they produced? How many of these different areas, since they're going along with this new SB 1537 and everything, how many are they producing or how many have they produced so far or how into the line? I couldn't find anything, but I did find this nice map. Next one. Okay. So here, we all pay to be on Acela. Does anybody work in here on Acela? Any hands? Raise some hands. So why isn't this the basis of what we just saw? I still will never understand a lot of things in government, but this is it. We every day go in to put building permits in. It's got a planning modules and things like that, but why can't we just do it through this? And why isn't this then shooting up to the state and they do? Because when I was in Georgia, we had every master plan or every comprehensive plan we did, which we had to do every 10 years. And then every 3 years, we had to do a capital improvement plan. Each of those we sent directly. We actually have to go online and then we upload it ourselves. And then when we do that, ding, 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 we have become I forget what they call it, but we get a special discount on loans and grants and stuff like that. So we become forget the name of it, but we're a good community. But so in other words, then I can go up to that website and I can find any comprehensive plan throughout the state and any capital improvement plan throughout the state. And can you do that in Oregon? Let me tell you, you can't, because when I did that little notebook LM study and dumped 39 or what I could find comprehensive plans in, Oregon's not one of those. So when we're doing all of this paperwork or for PAPAs and whatever, where is that going? And that's this. So this is one of my other things. So next one is to work on those workflows and processes, right? Because this is that example I wanted to show you guys. So advocacy has a point. My favorite phrase in Goal 10 is to provide for the housing needs of citizens of the state. 30% owned by those in Clatsop County. That's Cannon Beach, okay? 26% are owned by people outside the state. What does this one say here? Housing needs of citizens of the state. A quarter of my town are not citizens of the state, right? But they're taking up a lot of my housing, right? And so, I just think it's, if we're talking about statewide goals, that should be part. So next one, so I brought it up. I was invited or asked to be on that housing capacity supply or something like that committee. That was the state committee. And I was on that. And so if you look at this, DLCD and OHC recommend changes to the pilot methodology to fully account for the impacts on housing markets from second and vacation homes. Next one. And so they did. They increased and decreased according to that. So next one. And so, but my favorite, so even when you do all that, rub all that magic without strong public investment in housing development, implementation of the OHNA will simply help us do a better job counting what we do not build. Right? We're at a point where, the market did not solve it. And so we've got to solve this. We've got to work with everyone we can. And the fire marshal, hopefully. So next one. So where do we stand now? No new affordable housing workforce units in Cannon Beach, I think, since the last time I spoke to you, not any official ones. We have some that we believe maybe market rate might be more affordable, but nothing. $800,000 that we now have collected in the construction excise tax, right? I'm still talking about regional solutions because we got to spend that somewhere. And then the Planning Commission housing recommendations come before the City Council next month. And then we are holding an April Housing Opportunities work session. And is that in April? Yeah, that's in April. And so those are the things that are developing in Cannon Beach. So next up, this is what I brought to the City Council last month at their or last few weeks ago on what are the challenges of what we should be focusing on in the future. Anybody know this paper from Einstein, Glick, and Palmer on neighborhood defenders? It became a book as well. But there's over 10,000 cities out there in the US. There's a lot we can learn from Model Wise building. But these are the challenges, okay? Our biggest thing is NIMBYism, right? I mean, that is why you have Senate Bill whatever you just passed, right? It's because, here's the little magic wand, the little get out of jail card that you can just put on anything to get rid of your local zoning codes. Because why? Because those, if you'll look at this, what it basically boils down to is the differences of the problem is that people are coming out and they do not want housing in their neighborhood. They want community and affordable housing and workforce housing. They just don't want it in their neighborhood. And I want you to look at the differences here, okay? So the differences between commenters at public meetings, they did a huge study across Massachusetts, and this paper did, and they looked at how many people show up at meetings and what they talk about or are opposed to meetings, and you'll look, those over 50, 22 percentage point difference between those that comment and those that vote, okay? And those homeowners, 27% are homeowners as opposed to, the voters. So in other words, and of course, over white and under and women. So what we're saying is the voice is not representative. And I think that to me, the sampling error is the problem with where we're at today. Honestly, even this room, in every meeting we hold, every meeting I go to, public meetings are as broken as our free market is. And so next up. And so can we look at others? Yes, Manzanita passed SB 406, which requires all of these things pretty much. Duplexes, triplexes, quads, they did it a lot just through their middle housing. I would like to say they did it of their own volition. That's not what I've heard. So next up.
Bill 406 kind of gives it away.
Exactly. But I am a guy that says films don't lie. Okay, so I like to study film. I told you I like to watch public meetings. Yeah, that's me. But anyhow, we can learn from this, not just how other jurisdictions and what they're doing, but how do we are doing and what we're doing. You know, who is coming to those meetings and speaking? I mean, I wish I was could still write papers. Maybe with AI I can do this, but just to look at who speaks at our public meetings and what they say, you're not getting a fair representative of your public. And I can tell you that everything that we do, and us planners know that. I mean, it's not what we, and so how do we do this? How do we get more people involved in the housing issue? Those renters and those that don't vote. So next up. So that's what brings me to the next steps, which I've left totally blank because, I told you, I thought that the task force should last a year and a half, right? I thought the code audit was gonna be a year and a half. I thought everything was gonna be done by the time I got back. But anyhow, I did wanna show you where all this kind of came from. I mean, I still am passionate about affordable and workforce housing, and I look forward to working with anyone on this topic in any way I can. I don't know if this is the correct method going forward. And that's the one thing, when we talk about next step, that's the one thing I wanted to kind of throw out there is that, I didn't have a game plan. I had kind of an idea that I thought build these things for a year and a half. But when I got back, things have changed quite a bit. And so I expect to be learning from you guys from here on and working with you on how to move this forward. So thanks.
Wow. Yay.
One heck of a job setting the table there.
Yeah, John, can you keep up with that? He's a policy wonk, he's a data fiend, he watches council meetings for fun. Are you gonna keep up?
I did not say it was fun.
With a beer. Yeah. That was the anesthesia part.
Caterator watches stories, city council meetings. So I guess it opens it up for discussion on next steps, inclusive of.
Yeah, I mean, I would start with, at least maybe to Denise and about Crest and your all's role and, what do you all feel moving forward? What do y'all, and any thoughts on that or?
I mean, Crest has been really, we've been happy to assist the task forces, when Jeff left, Alyssa was coming on, and so I feel like she ended up doing a lot of the work, but we kind of have managed the back end in terms of the logistics, making sure we have a space to meet, that the agendas are going out, that people who are interested in the meetings are on the email list and those kinds of things. We're totally up. I mean, Garrett's here today in person. We're totally up for continuing to assist. And if there's ways for us as the Council of Governments in Clatsop County, with Clatsop County and all of the cities in Clatsop County to act even more in a regional way around this issue, we're certainly open to that and to talking about what that could look like and how we could help. I feel like it makes a lot of sense. Like I said, Alyssa and the county definitely was doing a lot of the heavy lifting as well. Really grateful for that. And so kind of whatever direction the group wants to go in we'd be supportive and willing to assist in whatever way this is how Crest works, right? People are like, hey, we need this thing, we want this help. And we're like, how do we organize this in a way that works for everyone? And so we would continue to do that.
My first question, I don't think I've heard an answer to is what's the county gonna do? Are they gonna replace Alyssa? Or what? It's county commissioner?
Well, my recollection of what the county manager said at the meeting was no.
I heard that too. From one, that it wasn't good. I mean, at another meeting.
Yeah, so county leadership is saying no at this point, which is, first of all, she's irreplaceable in my book.
True, yeah.
But our financial situation, I don't know you're elegant at producing solutions that are partially funded by a number of people, and maybe that kind of collaboration is possible in terms of funding. I don't know what your organizational capacity is. I mean, I sit on LCDC, I saw what he said, you know, and I'm comparing those, oh, look, this quick dashboard of those. Oh, good, I want you to send me that, because I'm gonna take it to a meeting and say, gee, isn't this interesting? Because I think the success of this group depends on that. It isn't exactly a flattened hierarchy, but that efficiency and that effectiveness, the concision between the intention and the execution of whatever is, I mean, that's the mark of success as I see it right now. So whatever the county can do to support the functionality of this group, I think, you know, heck yeah, let's talk about it. Let's figure something out. But the impulse is there to look for a collaborative solution that we're part of. As a commissioner, I can say that. I can't direct staff, but as a commissioner, I can advocate for that. Does that answer your question, Mayor? Close enough.
So I have, maybe a comment and a question, or maybe it's two questions, but, I know when Alyssa left, there was the Lease for Locals program, and we did try to get a meeting set up. I'm not clear if there's really still a lot of support from it. I wasn't sure from the
Really,
city side.
because,
Yeah.
unless it's paid for already by somebody else besides us.
Yeah, and then that kind of leads me to my second question is you've got this $800,000 sitting around from the construction excise tax, which you, in your presentation said, you know, for use regionally if it's not being used in Cannon Beach. But then what is the view of the city council of Cannon Beach? Are they open to spending those tax funds regionally throughout the county, or is it just really gonna be for Cannon Beach?
Well,
Sorry, not to put you on the
would-
spot
no,
like that.
No, I would hope that we would realize that if we're not gonna be successful building housing in Cannon Beach, there's no place to do it. Unless we take away part of the RV park and, you know, that kind of thing. When we presented the Pacific project to, at a city council meeting, we had citizens say, we're not giving money to Seaside. And I couldn't believe it, you know, and that was the prior council that discussed that. I think that Cannon Beach has to do something, and at least to locals, even if we have to help fund it, and I'm only speaking for myself right now. That's a solution, you know?
And Gail, on that point, you know, that's what I envision the next two meetings with our council to be discussing, because, you know, I had outlined, in a presentation, one of the ones that I reviewed prior to doing this thing, you know, before I left, I came up with some ideas. And one of them was, you know, to change that, we have an ordinance for the construction excise tax, and it currently states that it's to be used in Cannon Beach. And I want to strike that because we need to, just like we said, use it where we can use it best. And if that's Seaside, Warrington, or in Cannon Beach in the RV park. But to give those options, and so I want to reintroduce that and have that discussion with our city council, because I think the makeup of now and if I can give them a little dog and pony show when, you know, this is why you got to do it. You know, most of our workforce is in Seaside and Warrington. What are you talking about? But I wasn't able to make that argument at the time because I wasn't here. But I do think that those are the conversations I want to see, you know, continue at least with us, but regionally. You know, it's not simply, you know, I always put, you know, you've got your free land, right? That's going to run out. I'm going to tell you that. So we got to figure out where next. Where do we want to come together to put the infrastructure regionally to solve our workforce that makes sense for all of us? And that is planners sitting around with input from the public.
So Jeff, would you consider going inland to Jewel?
I would consider whatever makes the most sense,
Well,
for us, you
It's,
know?
it's off the ocean, it's more affordable.
Yeah.
And, that community at some point has been talking about looking for redevelopment, and it's close enough.
Yeah, I think we should be open to all those, and the data geek that I am, I think you have to look at, because I just came from North Carolina where, let me just tell you, we did not have countywide zoning. But guess what? We didn't have affordable and workforce housing either. They could build anywhere they wanted, but guess what? We didn't have affordable workforce housing. It's a similar community to this. It's a, resort destination community. I've got an entire public telling me, well, that, it's regulations that's causing the problems. It's all of this zoning, and, you pass Senate bills, whatever, in Oregon to get rid of that and to break down those. That's not the problem. The land price is so expensive in any of these places that we want to live nowadays, whether it's Atlanta, Georgia, Athens, Georgia, the mountains of North Carolina, or here. It's too expensive to build at $300 per square feet. It just does not pencil out in any of these jurisdictions anymore. And so these are solutions that I believe the free market's just not going to solve. We've got to figure out. And that's why I think, just waiting or thinking that free land is going to solve it it's not going to solve it. It may solve it for a few years, but that's still not the answer, the long-term solution, it's how we solve this.
Not to pivot this conversation, but I think the first question is, right, I think we all agree there's just too much to collaborate on regionally, there's too much to share, that we need to keep this task force alive. So, right, that's, I think, say that. My question speaks to, right, the leadership of that, who's gonna own that, and that's where I'm struggling, is who's gonna be the reliable leadership to keep these, whether it's monthly or bi-monthly meetings going, but, because it's, I can't think of one reason, right, not to keep these conversations going, so that's my question.
Jeff, I know you said it's a task force and it was supposed to be done in a year and a half, but Crest is a task force and we just celebrated our 50th anniversary.
There you go, that's right. See, so you had the model.
Well, part of your point in saying that, it wasn't that it should end, it was that you envisioned some real concrete changes in the world coming out of it.
Yeah, you're so right, Garrett. I expect, and I had the discussion with Denise, this is gonna be a handoff, is what it's gonna be. I didn't think it was going to end. And I really thought that Alyssa and that organization would likely take over a lot of that. And so I don't know even if Alyssa's not here, does that mean that we lose the affordable, what's the name of that group? The housing organization?
Oh, Noah?
Yeah, Noah. Is represented here? That's what I'm saying, that's what I don't, there's a lot of things that I don't understand, but, they need to be involved. And so, John will tell you, if you're in mountain town communities, you're also going to have the health networks and the hospitals, which we had involved when I was here for a while. And then you're going to have the major employers, right? And it's usually that ski resort in those towns, but there are major players that need their employers and workers to have homes. And so those are the other voices that I always thought that was going to be part of this going forward.
That sounds like Cedar. You've been to Cedar meetings?
Just yesterday.
Yeah, well, doesn't that sound like what he's talking about in terms of the population of that group? I mean, it's the major employers who sit around that table.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily, okay, I'm wrong on that then.
I'm happy to be one.
Well, right, we all know this.
To what degree are you reaching out to the Hispanic community to determine what their needs are, what the demographics and financial abilities, and also how much would you characterize regulations in the planning of a development affect the, total budget of that development?
Is that a question to me?
Two-part question.
Well, to anybody, I don't care. I'm curious about the cost of regulation in building something, and then also, as a demographic group that, need to have workforce housing, the Hispanic community. Pardon me if I'm out of line.
No, you're definitely not out of line. I mean, I think that, when when we concocted this is to get anyone involved. And then, I think Steve and Seaside they had a task force as well on affordable and workforce housing. And, I think the challenge was, what they did so well was they had the building community and representatives from that community that often came to almost every one of their meetings. And I met a lot of those builders at the time through your all's meeting, by coming to your all's meetings. And so, we never, I don't think as this organization really, found, a connection with those building, and contractors or with the Hispanic community. And so those are challenges, I think, for us as a group moving forward. And goes back to me saying every public meeting I go to, I do not want to be the youngest in the room, but I opted in. And, I don't want to be, speaking to the same people. And, we're not going to solve especially when I talk about once the free land's gone, what do we go from there? That's when we really have to, as a community, say, we've got to change how we look at land use and transportation in those systems. Because we're not solving it now. We haven't solved it up to now. And it's going to take those kind of voices at the table, because they're not going to drive from an hour and a half away. They just can't.
So whether it's brainstorming incentives, regional collaboration, better understanding outreach to underserved populations, regulatory costs, we need this meeting. How are we going to keep these meetings going? That's my only question.
Well, we can continue to make sure we've got the space, send out the agendas, make sure the Friday meetings are happening, for the planners, because the planners of all the jurisdictions get together a couple Fridays a month and plan these. And so, like, we've been doing that now for several years. We will continue to do that. Cannon Beach gives us a little money to cover that and has the entire time.
Sure.
And Garrett does most of the heavy lifting and for all of that. And I mean, I think we can continue to keep helping with on that, so that at least we're organized, so everyone knows when the meetings are and where they're at and all of those kinds of things, for sure. And then in terms of, I think, topics or, working together, those kinds of things are gonna have to come from this larger group. And then we'd certainly be supportive and then I think everyone will be different, right? The first grant to DLCD, Garrett and Alyssa wrote that. Alyssa, I think, did a lot of the work on the second one. So we're available to continue to assist in those ways. As long as there's general consensus that it makes sense to have us do that. And there's not someone else who wants to take it on.
No, I'm just hearing good topics for the meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot to drill into with the 50 questions.
And the other thing is we've had great speakers come and talk about work that they're doing. We've got at least one couple people coming in February. And so continuing to hear what other locations are doing, I think is also useful.
Does it make sense to go to an every other month schedule?
I would think so. I haven't been part of it, recently, but I just think at least, in preparation and trying to understand, what we want to do, at that next meeting, to have the planners, get together that week or, prior, and then be able to say, okay, yeah, I really think, scheduling out for that not the next meeting, the following, that gives us enough time of prep to build for that next meeting, you know what I mean? It's like a 3-week kind of runway into that.
We'd want,
Where it's difficult if it's weekly.
we've typically taken August off because summertime just becomes, that month becomes challenging for folks. And then we've typically taken November, December off. So we just need to structure, unless people were like, yeah, we can, if we're meeting every other month, then we can just go in every other month. So just we just noticed summertime attendance kind of dropped, especially as vacations and all those things, we got further into summer. And then because of when the meeting was scheduled, it was always bumping right up against Thanksgiving and Christmas. So, so in terms of the logistics pieces of every other month, just keep in mind, that may need to shift a little bit.
Maybe just November could shift,
Mhm.
do it earlier, not later or something.
To go from 9 meetings to 6 meetings.
Yeah.
Every other month's fine with me. In fact, particularly if the planners are meeting in between, because we're the ones that really get stuff done. As elected officials look at it and say, yeah, not good.
It's a whole day. You have a good idea, you're going to be elected.
That's an interesting
Well,
idea.
have to get the rest of the elected.
Yeah. Sort of the gap month in between optional planner get together.
Yeah.
It's a good idea. I kind of like moving forward with testing that concept.
Feels like it could give you all a little more space to do work on actual housing action instead of feeling like we need to continually produce guest speakers for the next meeting.
And that could plug in and alternate that for our Friday meetings.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, I don't know,
Yeah.
or something.
Tell me more what you're thinking there.
We meet on Friday to brainstorm
Yeah.
topics, but then use the planner, get together on those off months to.
Oh, so we could meet as planners like
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
time,
Right.
like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great idea.
That makes sense.
A little more efficient use of time, our time. Not that any of us are busy.
Cedar, which a couple of us go to, meets January. On the odd months, maybe we could do that, the housing, the even months. And that
What
way,
is cedar?
Clatsop Economic Development Resources.
Okay.
all together.
And we do have speakers scheduled for next month, so we'll definitely want to meet.
Okay.
Even month.
Hmm?
Which would be an even month.
That would be right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Get started on that.
Just consensus of straw poll vote.
Yeah.
Be all right.
Good plan.
With that said, should we round out or wrap up any of this conversation or move on to our next item with DLCD and Brett?
Well, are we gonna have Garrett and Jeff?
So
Yeah.
the item I had was to help tee up this conversation, and I felt when you had finished speaking that we were at a perfect spot to just start talking together. So we're gonna skip my slides. We wanted to ask Jeff to talk about all the housing projects they've done and just put in perspective, there's all this work that happens outside of the task force, and it's pretty exciting. So
I'll be quick.
Yeah.
I think it's 2 slides, I don't know if you've got it. Some of the stuff we've done has been directly related to some of the state laws that have been passed in the last sessions that have helped facilitate housing development. So all of this work has been done since 2022. I can go ahead and start with the first slide here. We'll start with our transitional type housing. As many of you know, we have Esperanza Village, and then more recently opened is the Stepping Stones community, which is the sanctioned camping area. That's what it looked like when I pulled the slide, I don't know, week and a half ago or so. And I made sure to get you guys a nice picture at sunrise, so you know that had some color to it. But these are our transitional units. We've got a total of 40 units here, 15 at Esperanza with the modular 60 square foot single or double occupancy units. And then our camp, which is 25 spaces plus a few extras for just overnight, one night only overflow camping. Go to the next slide, please.
Just one thing on that though, is that this Esperanza is really completely Clatsop community action running.
And is it full?
Esperanza?
Yeah.
I'm not sure what their status is right now. I know they've transitioned. The goal behind that, according to CCA, was a 6 to 9 month transitional space.
Right.
So they are moving people, from what I understand, in and out of that into hopefully a more permanent housing solution for those occupants. These are our affordable units. We've got the Pacifica, which was a combination of Senate Bill 8 got us there because it's on industrially zoned land, and Senate Bill 1537, the mandatory land use adjustments, got us to the 69 units because of parking minimum requirements. And I believe they're still parked at 1.2 spaces per unit. So there's still more than one space per unit for that development, which is pretty good. The Hawkeye was a Care Oregon project, and it was a former Red Lion building that they converted to 35% was permanent supportive housing for Clatsop behavioral health patients, and the other 70, my math's wrong, but the other 70% was market rate for their medical professionals and their partners, medical professional employees to utilize. Go to the next slide. Then we get to our market rate. We have the Wahana plexes on North Wahana by the big church there. Cross Creek is the development that you're seeing go up next to Dutch Brothers on the north end of town. Gilbert Building is going to the Planning Commission next Tuesday. They are proposing 28 units, 21 studios, 7 one bedrooms, all market rate on that second floor of the Gilbert Building. So those of you that have never been inside, that second floor was framed out, who knows when. But if you look at the old Sanborn maps, it was all vacant space, and from what history I've found, Mayor, I don't know if you've seen anything else, it's never been used for anything.
Wow.
It's just sat vacant. So there's a proposal to bring in housing units up there. Wahana plexes and the Gilbert Building both will be utilizing some Senate Bill 1537 land use adjustments to make them happen. The Wahana plex was able to get a couple of extra dwelling units by utilizing that application to get a little bit of adjustment from parking minimums and dwelling unit density. River Run is what's going up next to the Hawkeye. The back 2 buildings, they started advertising for lease, and I believe they got C of Os on those last week. So about half of those units are starting to lease up. The other half slated to be done, I think, by May of this year. And so we're seeing some pretty rapid construction on some of this. Avenue O is in appeal right now, but it sounds to me like the developer and the appellant are coming to a agreement that potentially can drop that appeal, and that's going to be 36 units. Again, market rate housing. Fifth and Downing is in a very preliminary phase. They're looking at building 8 single dwellings on a lot. It's right in downtown Seaside. Now that's going to be likely condominiumized, not going to be rental housing, but it's also potentially using a Senate Bill 1537 adjustment to yard requirements to get them to be able to have a more functional driveway parking area, a little more space between units. And then Hawkeye, again, that's other percentage, that other 70% is not affordable as market rate. Next slide. This is where we are in our phase of these. You can see the green, they are at C of O or they're occupied. So of the Wahana plexes, about half of those are already occupied, if not a little more. Cross Creek, the yellow, they're under construction. You'll see actually several of those buildings are going up. That's kind of a unique development. Each building's on a separate lot. So potentially each building could be owned by a different entity, and they've actually sold off several of the lots. So there's several ownerships under construction right now to get those off the ground. Again, River Run, they're under construction, and part of it has their C of O, and you can kind of see the rest there. All that being said, using some of the state laws and tools, we were able to get more dwelling units on these properties than would have been allowed with just applying our zoning code. If you go to the next slide, this is our total, what we've got going right now. So 418 dwelling units are either under construction, have C of O, and this isn't including single family dwellings, it's not including ADUs. This is strictly just apartment type
Did you
housing.
get a sign permit for that?
An actual seaside picture, the AI helped me. So yeah, that is a US Navy blimp over the turnaround in the 40s.
That's great.
Well, you guys should be congratulated.
Yeah.
Clearly Justin working 105%.
Well, I get asked, you know, what are we looking like on housing? Where are we on housing? And it's taken a lot of years just to get to this point where we can see construction and people actually moving their stuff into apartments. You know, this doesn't happen overnight, and all of you guys know that it takes time to get these developments up off the ground. And when you start factoring in the cost of financing, the cost of construction, the delays due to appeals, due to, you know, public hearings, public meetings, it can significantly delay these projects, and that can change their finance structure or their financing structure and their ability to get the money cheaper than what they could have 6 months ago if they had to go back to the well because of the delays. So my hope is to alleviate some of the red tape at some point. Seaside has started thanks to Brett's group at DLCD and a grant, a complete overhaul of our housing codes. So we're working on that with 3J right now, and hopefully we can factor in some of the concepts that we've discussed in this group, such as cottage clusters and dwelling unit densities and middle housing, to make those outright permitted, much easier to develop options. As you know, Jeff said, we're out of land. You know, we're running out of spaces to do these large scale apartment complexes. They're just not going to be feasible. Really in Seaside, there's not much land left to be able to do that. We've got pretty much one large chunk.
Except, yeah, the old high school.
The old high school.
That's included.
Yeah, that's not included in this. Forecasting, that's probably gonna be about 150 to 200 dwelling units on that development.
And that's what they're gonna do?
Part of it will be housing, they're looking at mixed use, but yeah, a significant portion of it will be housing. Market rate, likely, but that's gonna be really it for what we have for land. We're not really looking at any large tracts that can support, you know, 40, 50, 60 units.
Thanks, Jeff. Great work there.
Making us all look bad.
That's what I mean by set the bar. Every time we meet, I'm like, we gotta find out what
I
Justin sees.
think, I would like to make a motion to change it, then it says Jeff that talks the talk and Jeff that walks the walk.
I don't know, Jeff, talking the talk though, that AI thing you played sounded like Alyssa to me, and I'm not trying to offend Alyssa at all by saying that. I was like, if you got access to that kind of information at your fingertips, like,
It is just amazing.
you can move us along. Yeah, Alyssa is amazing. No replacing her, but as a group, we can learn lessons from what worked in the last, those 3 years, right, since 2022.
2022.
Yeah.
Like 4 years.
Text her and tell her you said that. Just
It's
saying.
insane, you could, yeah. She's smarter than AI, but it's rapidly catching up, that's the problem.
Sure.
I think I'd been in this position for maybe a month when we had the first meeting up at the
I remember.
And just not to put a downer on it, but the other side of the coin is we gotta have the infrastructure. to
That's
support
right.
all this.
Yeah.
So, that's the other thing that we work on.
What's that deficit in your infrastructure?
Huh?
The size of the deficit, bigger than a bread box, smaller than an apartment complex?
Our infrastructure is kind of okay. I mean, we're not Warrenton problem. But making sure, particularly our sewer system, you know, it has issues, it's old. And we need to make it work more efficiently and fix a lot of stuff. Water, we're in pretty decent shape, but you know, you can always use more water. You don't know what's coming down the road. And we have roads too that need to be fixed.
Yeah, my understanding is our sewer plant is in good shape as far as capacity goes. It's getting material to the plant. It's kind of the deficit right now with the pump stations, but the city council did approve, what, through last budget year, upgrading 2 of our major pump stations, which will feed a lot of this housing. And I believe they're getting ready to go out RFP on those to start the process to get those projects done, which will help with our capacity.
One of them's our urban renewal district is funding, the other city's funding. So. Based on estimates from last year, which, you know, who knows what they'll be when we get the bids back, right?
Well, it's 2:45, and the next item on the agenda is updates on DLCD housing planning assistant grant and other news, and I figured that would be the Brett Gail combo presentation, or take it away, enlighten us.
I'll go first and then Brett can correct what I say. But so back in 2023, I'll say the task force, but we all worked together to get a housing assistance grant from DLCD, which looked at buildable lands and housing capacity, the needs, the infrastructure needs. And based on that work, we applied for and received another grant in 2025 from DLCD for housing assistance. And this one is narrowing in our focus into a couple of opportunity sites in each jurisdiction. So each of the cities, each of the counties. I know everybody here except Seaside has gotten their sites to us. And we will need that by the end of next week, to say that officially, so, because we do need to kick the grant.
You're busy building them.
The housing code audit, you didn't need that, so. But anyway, so we have a draft scope of work from 3J, the consultant that we'll be working with, and as soon as we get Seaside sites, then we're gonna kick that process off and then just move forward from there, so. That's my only update on that. Oh, one other thing, February 11th, Sean Edging and Ethan Stuckmeyer are doing a presentation to our board during a work session to talk about the recently adopted rule changes that LCDC has passed and the formation of HAPO, and just talking to us about the impacts on Clatsop County and the cities and how that will affect us here. So that's 5 o'clock on February 11th. For those of you who like to tune in and watch other meetings, other jurisdictions meetings, Jeff, we have a virtual link as well.
And then, or maybe Brett will answer this, but general timeline with that, scope of work, early 2027 or?
Yeah, I think, I'm trying to remember. So the Opportunity Sites Grant is gonna look at the potential development, the regulatory hurdles. It's gonna develop a couple of the development scenarios for each property and then look at market feasibility. And if I remember right, yes, it's, I think March of 2027, I think is when we're supposed to be done.
Yeah, that's what I recall. So just to add on, and this is kind of moving forward with all these housing grants. So the housing grants that are in play in Clatsop County right now are the Clatsop County one that Gail was mentioning, and then John, the housing capacity analysis grant for Astoria, and then Jeff, the one you'd mentioned with the code assistance grant. There's a little bit of a pivot that's going on inside the organization in terms of how these grants are being managed. With the standing up of the Housing Accountability and Production Office and a more robust housing office at DLCD, those housing staff are going to be the lead contract managers for these grants. And so in the past, the regional rep, myself, was more of that grant manager. But now, like all of the scope negotiations are all being done through the housing staff. I'm being kept in the loop along the way and will be involved and included, but you'll see that the respective folks that are assigned to the different jurisdictions from the housing side of the office will be, reviewing any deliverables, and I'm always able to be contacted and reached out to if there's a question, and I can coordinate with the housing staff if something pops up along the way. That's all I have.
I'm just curious, was 3J awarded the contract for all those? Or are you able to say who? Because they were awarded ours, 3J.
They got ours.
Okay.
Everybody else.
Oh, really? We should get them an office down here.
Yeah, I'll say that, Seaside was a little bit different in that they already had 3J as a consultant. And theirs was a direct grant that went directly to Seaside, and then they chose to continue on with their consultant they had already under contract doing project work in their community.
Okay. Any other questions or topics on grants coming down?
Are you willing to continue facilitating the meeting?
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you.
And maybe, we can get creative with closing out these meetings with seeing some of Jeff's handiworks or touring, something that can only speak for some of our Astoria crew, giving a tour of the tent camping area at Seaside. Very insightful. Seeing it firsthand.
I thought you were gonna talk about the tent camping area in Astoria.
Oh. Well, let's not go there.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, and to maybe even do, it doesn't have to be every meeting, but, to go to different jurisdictions for the meetings and have a tour before or after, maybe in the beer, but I'm not gonna say. But the other thing I wanted to bring up was get back to that lease for locals, because I think that they were wanting to, a presentation or something like that, was it? Do you remember, Denise, or?
We followed it. Did we follow it up?
Garrett,
My recollection was that, because our nonprofit's still interested in helping to support it, we don't have the capacity of the cities, but, in collaboration with Cannon Beach, we can do a reduced
that's what
scale
I'm saying.
model.
Yeah.
And so last thing I heard from Alyssa was that she had asked for a smaller size lease to locals program, not a countywide one. As far as I know, that's still on their desk, but maybe a reminder or email from Garrett or.
And I talked with that Kai,
Yes.
and Marcy from Herbs Work, that's who the call was. And I said, well, I would bring it up at this meeting just to see if there are other jurisdictions that would at least want to, see if they were wanting to be involved. Like you said, without the grant, because I don't see another funding from that if it's not from the jurisdictions and kind of a collaborative type of thing.
So I had sent out a doodle poll and we were trying to set up a meeting for January, and then I kind of got busy. I didn't feel that Seaside was interested, and then we were thinking about maybe just doing a presentation to this group, more in general, but maybe what we can do, I'm thinking maybe myself, you, Garrett, I don't know, Chad, anybody else who wants to be on the call, maybe we can just have kind of the tech staff level talk about it, and then bring something back to the group in maybe not February, but maybe for our April meeting.
That sounds good.
$800,000 sitting in Cannon Beach.
I know.
That's right. If they don't want to do RV parks.
Yeah, we can all come and sit in that meeting, and speak.
Shouldn't tell your secrets like
I have to sneak out early, but I do just point of order, want to make sure Jeff's invited to the Friday planners meeting. I know you probably have been invited and you're too busy to attend, but.
Actually, I was just invited this year for the first time.
Okay, I was a little worried there was an oversight there.
It's a very exclusive club.
It is.
I saw that. Saw that.
So, Jeff, I'll send out an email about the lease to local planner meeting, and then we can figure out some dates and times.
Okay.
But that could happen at a Friday meeting.
Yeah,
too.
it could do, yeah.
That's the reason I brought it up, is now most of the planners and me, so until they kick me out, or replace me with somebody productive like Jeff, are at that Friday meeting, so. Yeah, I joke about it, it's not very.
That was the official agenda. Did we want to wrap up by doing a quick roundtable before we wind down the meeting and maybe start?
Jeff, did you have anything else to leave? You wanted any?
Yeah, actually I do. I want to say a couple words. So, Lily Brown is online and maybe she can speak after I leave, but she's an architect who has a lot of experience with affordable housing and has moved to the coast to Gearhart and is really interested in getting involved. She's doing her own thing, but also partnering with us, North Coast Housing Solutions. So we have another resource locally, which is fantastic. And then I think I already talked about our interest in the RV park. We're always still interested, Mayor, and we are very interested in least local. So looking forward to more conversations about that. Sorry, I have to run. My daughter needs to go to piano lessons.
Brett, we'll offer you the first opportunity. Anything else you want to say to the group while we're still here?
Nothing else at this point in time.
Okay. Let's go this way. Let's start with Eric.
I don't have any updates. Sorry, from like city to Gearhart.
How much time are you gonna be here in person?
I'm leaving tonight. Yeah, and I've been here since Saturday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, probably on track to being back a few more times this year.
Oh, good, okay.
Yeah, and we're really looking forward to participating in the DLCD housing planning grant and have a couple of sites that we're excited about that we're trying to move forward with. So.
Yeah, Gary came in Monday, helped our staff out, gave us oriented with shoreline and related issues. Thanks. Some quick updates from Astoria. Trying to get to a TCO on Owens Adair, which is a 50 unit senior 60% AMI affordable housing unit. They have ambitious TCO, CO targets, but try to navigate that. And then CBH, which is Clatsop Behavioral Health there, right next to KFC. They have a TCO only for furniture though. Not to move it. So it's actually professional, their professional office space. And so working through invariably some tricky infrastructure issues with them, but that's, maybe 4 or 6 weeks out for a CO for them. So that's exciting. And then we did put in some grant requests to the Housing Infrastructure Finance grant through Business Oregon. I don't know if anybody else did. We put a grant in for Copeland Commons to $2.5 million plus to help with some stormwater, but waiting to hear if the funding pans out for Copeland Commons. But that'd be 66 units-ish right downtown Astoria, kind of near Astoria Brewing, Sisu Brewing. So those are 3 active projects, and then trying to put together concepts to issue 2 RFPs for 2 other related affordable housing projects, one of which we've been talking to the county quite a bit about, trying to barely navigate some initial
Warren County land.
complexities.
Is that Warren County land?
Yeah, it's our parking lot across from the county.
Oh,
building.
yeah, that was okay.
Hit 1 and hit 2.
So yeah, those are some things in motion in Astoria. And then I just jotted down some ideas too of when we meet in the odd months as planners.
That's good for planners.
Some geeky things we can talk about. We're
That's a joke.
Yeah, but we're investigating Rentalscape to monitor our vacation rentals and like to get feedback.
Oh, yeah.
Using it, get your thoughts. Anyway, stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's an example. So
On the housing side, we're still building. I mean, we're seeing just about weekly new single family dwellings go up. We're seeing, have seen a few ADUs come through my desk recently. They don't like the assisted development charge, so they changed those to guest houses. But I imagine they'll still be renting those probably long term as a roommate type situation. One thing that came across my desk it's been probably 6-8 months now that we've been exploring is I found a duplex in Seaside that, there was a neighbor complaint because the chimneys are falling off and that they tarp the roofs. Looking further, it was a land division done long before our codes, most likely, that actually made each side of the duplex sellable. It's been vacant for more than 4 or 5 years now. Nobody's been to it in years, and it's just falling apart. So again, looking at some of the existing housing we have in town, is there codes we can implement to spur those owners to occupy them, sell them, or rent them? And so we're looking at doing, getting to our council at sometime in the near future, update to our kind of dilapidated, building codes to start looking at some of these properties that are in the inventory as housing, or second homes that are just not being used at all. And they're just sitting there rotting away. Can we spur some movement on those is kind of my hope. That duplex should be occupied. It should be housing people. It should be a rental. And it's not, and it hasn't been for a very, very long time. And I'm sure that's not the only one in Seaside. I'm sure there's more. There's houses that are like that. I haven't seen a duplex like that yet though, which was just kind of a frustration of mine. So thanks to Brett, we're looking at Astoria's codes on that, kind of modifying some of that to fit our needs and try to have our council look at it and see if it's something that we can take on to spur naturally occurring housing found out in the wild.
Would you have even known about that if there wasn't a complaint about it?
No, I've driven by it many times, never crossed my mind to stop and look at it, or, you know, a house is a house in Seaside. Most of the winter, you see a lot of vacant homes because nobody's here. But as we start seeing sports tourism take off, even more so this year than I think I've ever seen, the short-term rentals are filling up, the hotels are filling up. We have one major hotel down right now, which is causing that overflow to go to other places. But this one, it never even crossed my mind that that's just sitting there. Perfectly usable building that could have been a rental for 4 years. Likely would have been on the lower cost of rentals. And it's not being utilized at all.
What's your approximate SDC cost for a single family home? No one could move it.
About 9,700.
Oh.
Cheap. That'd be another, I'd love to compare.
Yeah, we have this for you, yeah.
You have it?
Yeah, we're up to about 24,
Okay.
and that's still very cheap statewide.
Mm-hmm.
Want to talk about red tape costs?
System development charges, yes. About 9,700. It's not tiered and it's per dwelling unit. So each one of those apartments outside of the Pacific all paid that SDC charge for each unit.
Did the recreation district increase or establish fees or increase them? Because they had talked to us about an agreement to collect an unincorporated.
They talked to us about that too, and I never saw anything after that conversation. So I'm assuming you haven't either.
Yeah.
So in fact, the city manager asked me that yesterday if I'd seen any more about it. I haven't seen anything or heard anything.
We did have a conversation with the developer last week who asked if we have any affordable housing incentives that are specific to Gearhart. And I was able to tell him that we have no SDCs in Gearhart for anybody. So it's not just an affordable housing incentive. And that's something that might not be sustainable and that we might be having conversations about changing, but if we did, there would still be room for, you know, carving out exemptions for affordable housing. So I don't know if you guys.
There is no such thing except to backfill it.
Okay.
You could, some jurisdictions that got creative, but we can talk, but it's not an easy thing to do. It's one of the most difficult fee waivers there is. And that's why you want to put housing in your urban renewal districts, then you can backfill with urban renewal funds and double dip with paying your own infrastructure. That's how we do it.
Is there any discussion with regard to cottages having at least market housing, or is it just?
Yeah, we are still talking with the cottages about potentially bringing them into the city. And it's an active discussion. We've met with them a few times in the last several months. You know, Peter Watts, our attorney who passed away last year, was really the city's sort of go-to and leader on that whole concept. And so we've all had to take a step back and just look at the whole approach that we were taking and, we've talked with them about that and just, think about how we really want to do it and make sure that, everyone who needs to be involved is getting the information they need, and it's something that city council would want to do. So we've been talking about how to approach it.
Kara, do you want to talk about what we talked about yesterday, or is that?
Yeah, so we might be looking at the cottages site with the housing planning assistance grant and it's something that the owners are open to potentially. And it's like probably the most important thing I have to do tomorrow is try to connect with them to see if we can take that next step. So, there's a variety of ways to bring property into a UGB. And so I think the idea of potentially taking a year to look at the site with some fresh eyes through this project, and then maybe get affordable housing as a component of it and use the SB 1537 one-time edition would be, I'm getting ahead of myself even talking about it, but it would be like pretty dreamy if that worked out in the next couple of years. So, and I see it, like we see a pathway to potentially do that for the first time now, based on, some conversations with Steve and Ryan. So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't need to say an expert already talked. Although he did mention we're still working on our comprehensive plan update too.
Yes, we are.
Another simple thing.
And Brent's gonna give me some comments this week, next week.
Hoping, I'm hoping on next week is what I'm pushing for.
Excellent.
All right.
Hey, Jeff, but give me a call whenever you get done. I want to chat with you on something. So when you have a moment. Okay.
Would that be the sites that Seaside needs for the grant? But anyway, Clatsop County, we had gone through a remand last year with LUBA, because we amended our code to add different types of housing to our rural communities and reduce lot sizes. It was appealed to LUBA, it was remanded back to us. And so in the fall of last year, the board held a remand hearing, readopted the ordinance with some additional findings, and it was not appealed. So it's now in effect. And we are actually having developers come in and with permits, applications for duplexes now. So we haven't gotten any triplexes or quadplexes, but that is just the duplex in the unincorporated area is a very new thing. The only other thing I wanted to bring up is that I know Warrenton is not really participating much with anybody anywhere about anything right now because they're really over capacity at their city. But I'm willing to reach out, but if anybody else would rather reach out and maybe just work to keep Warrenton informed and involved, we, for the housing grant, have actually chosen some county property that's in the city of Warrenton in addition to a rural site, just so that they can be part of the process, even if they don't have the staff capacity to.
I will try this week,
Okay.
get that, because I'd reached out to Kelsey and Henry, and so haven't heard back from Kelsey, but I haven't heard back. So I will follow up on that.
He's out of this country.
Yeah, figured.
But just making sure that they're still part of this organization, don't get left behind. That's all.
And thanks for trying to coordinate our property wish list. Some of us haven't
The
done this
document I got from the city of Astoria, I think it was 3 pages.
just nine property.
Yeah, there was way more than 9 properties. And the diatribe about the school districts and how they're the largest landowners. But if you pull up the tax map and type in city of Astoria owns about 1/3 of the property in the city. So there you go.
There's data talking.
The fact check.
Slides though. Yeah.
Anyway, I'm done.
I think Garrett gave most of the update for Crest. I will say in terms of Warrenton, Garrett is doing some work for the city on current side to help with capacity.
Have they hired anyone yet?
No.
Yeah, and they're hopefully in a couple months, or in a few months. And then, yeah, like AKS and 3J and myself are all helping the city right now. So they have a pretty good support network. And I'll mention to Esther and Judith that it'd be great to have their involvement, including in Friday meetings. But I think like the more, the better in terms of connecting with people you feel comfortable connecting with on their city council or planning commission to encourage participation.
Yeah, and Garrett knows this, but for the rest of you all, last biennium, Warrenton received a housing code assistance grant to update their development code for housing issues, and they're taking their code amendments through Planning Commission in February. So they're rolling forward with the implementation of the work coming out of that grant, which was completed last year.
And that was a 3J. 3J was the consultant on that, and they're continuing to try to help get that across the finish line.
So should we have 3J at this meeting from here with this?
Oh, well, they're the consultant on our new DLCD grant. I don't know if we said that, so they will be here at some point.
Yeah,
to talk.
probably in April.
Yeah.
I have nothing more to add. Nice to have Jeff back.
I'm sure. Well, this is my reality test. I mean, I want to walk away from here with meeting minutes that have all of the data that you all just said, so that when I'm sitting on a dais and I hear a staff report, I can balance it with the reality that's produced. Then, at Clatsop County and then in Salem. So that balancing of what the intentions are, because the intentions are always noble, but what does it mean for what you're able to do, and what difference does it make in our communities? So this reality testing is very important to me, and I want to see all the data possible coming in manageable form.
That's gonna be difficult. Well, I want to thank you guys for having me, but I also want to thank Crest, Garrett, and Denise for keeping us going, and Robert for stepping in too. But I also want to thank not Seaside for all that construction. I want to congratulate you for your first Luba. And that is from Cannon Beach. That's impressive.
Yeah.
That's what's impressive.
Fantastic. Yeah.
You've arrived now.
Right. Yeah. Unfortunately, there's more to follow. But anyhow, on our front, we are doing a STR cap going before our planning commission next month. At least the work session starts. And then, like I said earlier, we're gonna be talking housing over the next couple months, and so I look forward to kind of reporting back on those kind of developments. And so hopefully we'll see. We're looking at the two that I sent Gail, RV Park and Southwind, as two possibilities, but we're gonna have some conversations about those as well. Okay.
Almost 3:15. Oh, sorry.
Just quickly, field rep for Representative Jeff. What would be nice if that information that you're requesting is consolidated and we get it down to him. Secondly, I'll commit to have him come Zoom in every once in a while so that you can pin him down. And in the meantime, as we go into the February short session, I encourage you to reach out to his office, any kind of questions or any kind of suggestions, just to start planting some ideas in his head, because this organization has got legs and opportunity to get some really good things done down the road.
And John, I don't know if they are wanting to say anything or not.
Yeah. Lily, we're offering up final comments before we adjourn. Anybody online, feel free to chime in.
Well, this is an amazing introduction to the issues and the complexity, and I am happy. I just feel like I've been hit with a fire hose of information, so I'm going to process it, and I will be reaching out via email to many of you.
For everybody's awareness, Sam, who you see online there, he's Astoria's new vacation rental expert. Also, I guess, associate planner.
Oh,
Thanks, Sam.
And then Jason, sorry, any comments or input for the group?
Nothing really, I suppose. I guess I just will make one general comment that, kind of through the lens of staff at OHCS, I really appreciate what everybody's doing, who participates in this group. This sort of regional convening of stakeholders is really valuable, and not all regions around the state have a group like this. I personally would like to see other regions around the state have something very similar. So I'm just kind of learning a lot from what this group is doing. So just kudos and thank you.
There, see, doesn't it make you want to do more data on top of it?
Okay, time to adjourn. Thanks, Jeff, for teeing everything up.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris, for keeping the wind in sails. Yeah.